Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for today's webinar today. So today's webinar, we are going to talk about eye tracking settings, the software from Tobii Dynavox. We're going to go through an introduction. We're going to talk about the calibration, the positioning, and the customization. Some good news as well, actually, just before I get started, only 2 minutes ago, and I think Ishita might be able to pop in the link as well to the website. The TD Browse application on our devices has now become available as of 2 minutes ago. TD Browse is basically a browser for eye tracking users, basically for eye gaze users. So it is basically designed for the eye gaze user. We will probably over the next few weeks be doing a webinar on this as well. So we don't have any links for that. Just keep an eye on your emails and we will send out a reminder of that webinar if anyone is interested in attending that. That'll be, I'd say, in the next few weeks. We do also have a webinar coming up as well. It's the motor planning page set. So for anyone who doesn't know, TD Snap, we brought out a new page set on that. That's for motor planning. And there is 2 different size page sets on that. And there is links to that as well, which we will get to you as well. And that webinar is actually towards the end of this month, as far as I know. Can't remember the exact date, but I'll get that there for you in a second as well. So that webinar will be coming up. That's scheduled. And as I said, the TD Browse webinar, we'll be planning that and we'll get that link up soon enough. It's just that it was released literally 3 minutes ago. So that's just a new application for any eye gaze users out there as well. Okay, so as I said, I can see a few new names on the list and I can see a few, I suppose, familiar names as well. So I will go through it as best as I can for both audiences. But today we'll be going through, the agenda is calibration, positioning, and customization of the eye tracking settings software. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go through the different areas, a bit of text on PowerPoint slides, and then I'll do a live demonstration on the iSeries for the eye tracking settings softwares. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know ourselves, we are SafeCare Technologies. So we're now SafeCare Technologies by Tobii Dynavox. So Tobii Dynavox has acquired us as a company. So we are still SafeCare, but we are now part of the Tobii Dynavox community, which just means it's more resources and it's better for I suppose, for yourselves. So my name is Michael Brazel, and I'm with SafeCare Technologies a little over 4 years now. I've got a lot of experience with AAC and assistive technology. I am the solutions consultant, so you might see me around Ireland a lot. So I travel around Ireland. I do a lot of assessments and trainings, a lot of loan devices as well. I support for them as well. Okay. So a little bit about the company. These are the areas that we work with. So we basically provide AAC communication solutions. So they are in the form of our touch devices, our switch devices, eye gaze devices, and so on and so forth. We also provide assistive technology solutions as well. So assistive technology solutions like switches and joysticks, for example. We supply multi-sensory as well. So we supply the SHX system and also the Magic Carpet as well. Which is basically an interactive carpet, interactive floor mat, sorry. And also the cognition products. So we do scheduling and cognition products, for example, timers and scheduling products. We do mounting solutions. We work with Readapt as well. So we do wheelchair mounts, floor mounts, table clamps, and so on and so forth. And finally, as well, we provide some environmental control solutions as well. So for someone who might be an eye gaze user, a switch user, a touch user, depending on their access method, we have different types of remotes and access methods for environmental control to be able to control your windows, your doors, your blinds, and so on and so forth. Okay. So these are some of the companies that we do work with. So obviously we are Tobii Dynavox, so we sell the communication devices, the AC devices. We work with Readapt for the mounting solutions, for example, your floor mounts, your table clamps, and even your bed mounts and wall mounts and so on and so forth. We work with Praetorian and AbleNet for switches and joysticks. We work with Abelia for environmental control and also the scheduling products, the cognitive products. And finally, we work with BJ Live, who have now been rebranded as Quinera. We work with them for the SHX system, and we also work with them for the environmental control as well. So that's just a little bit about the companies that we do work with. So Going to get straight into it now, and we're going to talk about the eye tracking settings basically. So we're going to go through the introduction. And so this is just a quick screenshot, a quick glimpse of what the eye tracking settings software looks like when we open it up. But again, you'll see more of that when I do the live demo in a while. So firstly, I want to talk about, I suppose, how does eye tracking work? So eye tracking basically works by putting the user on front of the device. Once we put the user on front of the device or the device on front of the user, basically your eyes will be tracked in by a near infrared light. So you will see straight away when you look at a device that has eye tracking, you will have red lights on the front, and they are your infrared lights basically. The light is then reflected on the surface of your eyes. So as I look at the screen, that light is reflected on the surface of my eyes, and that sends that data back to the device as well. So the reflections, as you see, are picked up by the camera in the eye tracker, and that data then is reflected back into the actual device. And then the process then, it basically takes the image to know where the device user is looking on the screen at any one time. So as that takes the data from my eyes, as it reflects off my eyes, it's taking all that data and it knows exactly where I am looking on the screen as well. So that's basically just, I suppose, a general introduction to eye tracking and how it works. So just in relation to some positioning tips, and when you're positioning the user comfortably on front of the device, it's more or less basically around moving the device rather than actually moving the user themselves. So the idea is to position the user comfortably. Okay, so you want to adjust the mount to suit the user, not the other way around. So whether it's a floor mount, a table clamp, or a wheelchair mount, we want to move the mount to suit the user rather than move the user to suit the mount. Okay, and that's why the mounts would have, so I suppose you might seen a lot around, I suppose with the readapt ones, there's a lot of different types of bars on them, and you can adjust those bars and adjust the UDS, which is the top area that attaches to the device, in order to be able to suit the user themselves. Okay, so if the user is most comfortable tilted, reclining, or laying down, those are all fine positions as well. So no matter what the device is, we can have that user basically in those particular positions, and then basically we can adjust the device for that particular user then. Okay. Step 3 then basically is make sure that the user is wearing their glasses. So if you have a user that needs to wear glasses, make sure that they are wearing their glasses, and just make sure as well that those lenses on those glasses are clean as well. So if they are foggy, it might interfere with the eye tracking, for example. So just make sure that the actual glasses that the user is wearing are clean as well. So they're just a few position tips. Some of you might be familiar with this particular image that I'm showing up here now, okay, and some might not be. So this is your track status box, okay? So no matter if you're in our older softwares like Gaze Point, Gaze Interaction Settings, Windows Control, or even in the new Copilot on the TD Pilot, you're going to see this track status box basically. So this is your positioning tool. So what you'll generally see when you have a user in front of a device is white dots and a white arrow. And the two white dots that you're seeing, first of all, they're your eyes, basically. So what we need to do is position those dots basically where your eyes, in the center of the black box. So you're seeing basically the position of the dots are where your eyes are situated in relation to the screen. So if I was to move left or to the right, you'll see those two white dots will move left or right, up or down, same thing as well. And again, I'll show you that in the demonstration in a while. The colored bar there on the right hand side, that relates to the distance. Okay, so the optimum distance then basically for a eye gaze user is basically between 55 to 90 centimeters. So again, that white arrow that you're seeing on the right hand side, if I go closer, the white arrow is going to move up, and if I go further away, the white arrow is going to move down. So again, that's your distance. So we want to get that distance as close as we can get it to the green in the center. So as close as you can get it to that center green part there, that's basically getting the optimum position for the eye gaze user then. Okay, so that is your track status box. The next thing then is your calibration. So for your calibration, basically, the eye tracking, basically for it to work accurately as possible, the eye tracker must know whereabouts your eyes are. So that's what I'm saying a while ago with the track status box. From when we do that, it needs to know where your eyes are. And that's why you need to do the calibration afterwards as well. So when the eye tracker measures how your eyes are reflected the light, the calibration is done by following a point or video that moves across the screen. So we'll show you that as well in a while. When we're doing the calibration, we'll have dots moving across the screen, and then they'll explode. And that's basically taking the data of where I'm looking on the screen, for example. That calibration data is combined with your unique 3D model of your own eye and create an accurate eye tracking experience, basically. Okay, so we want to get good accuracy and good precision for any calibration. Okay, so just some tips now next as well in relation to calibration. Okay, so with calibration, basically the software I'm going to talk about today is the eye tracking settings software, and that's available on the i13, the i16, or the PCI. Okay, as I mentioned, there's the TD Pilot that has co-pilots. That's the eye tracking settings on that. It's slightly different, but also has a lot of similarities. And then also you have got the older devices like the i12 Plus, the i15 Plus, or even the iMobile, or even the old PCI as well. All those particular devices would have had gaze point or gaze interaction settings. Again, very similar in a lot of ways, but have certain differences as well. But generally, you still have your track status, you still have your calibration, which remains the same as well. So when doing a calibration, a perfect calibration is not necessary for you to use it effectively. Okay, so a lot of people, I suppose, are very weary about, oh, the calibration isn't perfect. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. We can always revisit that as well. So the calibration at any time you feel accuracy could be improved, basically. So we can always come back at a later point if we felt it wasn't great. Now we can always come back at a later point and improve points. So basically, as well, just to note as well, changes in lighting, positioning, and medication or mood can also affect calibration as well. So sometimes, if someone might be heavily medicated at a particular time, or if the room is too bright, for example, you mightn't get that accurate calibration that you want. So we can always come back to that if we're in a different room and improve certain points as well. And again, I'll go through that improving the points in the live demo in a while. And finally, then just the last tip, the calibration does not have to be green to be usable. So what we mean by green to be usable is that there's different levels when doing your calibration. You have good, bad, and great, basically. Okay, so sorry, bad, good, and great in a level. So your bad is basically red, your good is yellow, and your great is green. So again, bad points doesn't mean that it's a bad calibration. It just means it's not as accurate as a great calibration. So you still can work away with those points on bad or good. It's just not going to be as accurate as the great calibration, but it still is usable. Okay, so that's why it's always good to, if you do a calibration, come back and revisit it later on if you have some bad points or good points. You don't have to do it all straight away because that sometimes makes the user themselves disinterested in using the device. Okay, so get started with your activity and revisit calibration, as I mentioned later, after the user has gotten to practice using the eye gaze. So that's where we're going into our communication softwares, maybe they're cause and effect softwares, and we can revisit that at a later point again. And then finally, we have the customization tips. So with customization, basically, that's just doing a few changes to the settings of the eye tracking settings software. So here we can change the accuracy points for calibration, where we can have 2, 5, no, sorry, 1, 2, 5, or 9 points. So the more points we have, the more accurate the calibration will be. We can track both eyes, we can track the left eye, or we can just track the right eye on its own. And we can also do things like changing the speeds of the stimulus going across the screen, even the speed of selection of, your points. So for example, if we're in communication and the dwell times, we want to change the speeds of that, we can do that too. We can change the stimulus type within the customization of the eye tracking setting software. And that's basically, the size of the stimulus when we're doing the calibration. Maybe you want to change it to an image. Maybe someone's motivated by Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse. We can change it to that image. And we can also change the background. So for someone who might have a visual impairment, for example, we might want to have a very bright yellow dot for calibration, but a black screen in the background then as well. Okay. So again, you can change things around as well to suit the specific person using the device. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a device. Okay, so I have an iSeries here with me and I'm going to open up the eye tracking settings. So just bear with me now. I'm just going to switch over the screen share over onto the other device. I'm just going to rotate that around just so we have that. Okay. What I'm going to do now is just stop sharing on my screen. I'm going to start sharing on the eye tracker. Okay, so hopefully you should all be able to see this particular device there now. Yeah, it looks like I am screen sharing. So that's perfect. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to minimize this area here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this into the center just to show you. So eye tracking settings. So the logo itself, you might have seen it there throughout the slides a while ago. But this is basically the eye tracking settings software, the one I just pulled into the center. That is the green icon with the white eye. So when I double press on that one, that will open up my eye tracking settings. So straight away, I'm just going to move this out of the way, just move it down here. Okay, straight away, okay, you're going to see my eyes are moving around. So basically, you're seeing that track status box straight away, as I mentioned. So you're seeing my eyes move around. I go left, and I go right, and my eyes are moving around. So I have a particular area where I have flexibility to move around. So no matter where I am in that box, it will still track my eyes, basically. Okay, so you can see me moving around. So that's basically your scope to move around when you're using eye tracking. You've also got that arrow on the right-hand side. So as you see, if I go closer, the arrow moves up. It's gone now because I'm too close. If I move away, the arrow moves down. Okay. So I might be too far away. Now it still will pick up my eye tracking settings because you see basically the arrows within the colored section. It's only, for example, if I went too far away, now I can't go too far away because I'm up against the wall, but I could go too far away that it won't track my eyes. But what we want for that optimum position, as I mentioned a while ago, is to have that arrow as close as we can get it to that green section. So here we have it in the center of the green, and the two white dots to be in that black box itself. So obviously what I would do if I was the communication partner is I would move the device rather than moving myself. But as I'm moving around here now and I have the device in one specific section, I'm just going to move around and position myself. But generally speaking, what we should do is move the device, not the user themselves. So let the user get comfortable, and then we'll move the device to suit the user. So once we have this position, okay, then we have this screen here, as you can see. So you've got up the top calibration, activation, feedback, and general. So they're the different tabs that we can select, and I'll go through them in a second. Straight away, when you're seeing this screen, you're seeing manage profiles and create new profile. So I can create multiple profiles, one for maybe the particular user themselves, one for the communication partner, so I can practice using the eye gaze software, and so on and so forth. Maybe one's for family members, and so on and so forth. So you can create as many profiles as you want within that area then. We then have up the top as well calibration results and our test calibration. So in those two particular areas, we can go back and look at the calibration results from my previous calibration and improve points there. And we can test the calibration. And the testing of the calibration is an accuracy tool. If I click into that, you'll see I have an accuracy tool where I can look at the dots on the screen and just test my accuracy. So you'll see here, maybe down the bottom left, it wasn't as good because I'm not hitting the center. Here we have the middle of the screen, middle of the screen. So I'm just looking in these circles just to test my accuracy, basically. Okay, so I'm going to look at close and just go back to the home screen. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to show you the calibration area. So the calibration area, if I was just not going to go near the settings, if I wasn't going to do any changing, I'm just going to go straight to calibration and no customizations. Look at calibration basically. And when I look at calibration, that's when it opens up the screen. So I'm just going to overwrite this existing one. Look at yes. And this is what the calibration screen would look like. So we have dots going across the screen. We look at each dot until it basically moves on to the next one. Okay, and I'm going to deliberately look away now, maybe get distracted at this dot. Okay. And maybe this one as well. Okay. So what I'm trying to achieve, and just to show you here, is I'm not going to get a perfect calibration, okay? So here you're going to see we've got a lot of great points, but we've got 2 good points, okay? So the 2 good points, you see what has happened when I was looking at those 2 good points. I was actually distracted, so my eyes were traveling. So that's what those white lines indicate, eye travel, basically. So when it came to that calibration point, when we were trying to do that one, my eyes traveled, I got distracted, okay? And we got a good point. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the good point is still a calibration. You still have a good calibration there, okay? So it's not that it's not calibrated, it's bad. We still have a calibration, so we can work on that. We can come back to that at a later stage. So if I'm happy with that, I can just look at close, and that's closed. Now, that is touch enabled as well, so we can press that to close that as well if we like to. Okay, so at a later point, if we felt, okay, maybe today's calibration wasn't the best, let's go back and let's revisit that calibration, and let's maybe, you know, increase or improve some of those points. So what I can do is go back to calibration results. And what I can do then is you'll see here now, this is my previous calibration. So I can now basically click on certain points. So I'm going to click on the 2 good points. Okay. And you'll see they're now selected. And what I can do is go down to the bottom right and click on improve points. And it's going to go to that calibration screen for me now next. Okay. The calibration results. Sorry, I looked at that actually a second ago. And that loads up my calibration. So 1 point, 2 point, improve. Now that should load up. I don't know why that's not actually loading up for me. Apologies about this. Maybe because of the screen share or something's interfering with it. But basically, it just opens up the calibration again, and it opens up the calibration for just those 2 points. So we just now have to focus on those 2 points and do our calibration from that way then. Okay? So that is basically how we would do the calibration and how we would improve the points. Now, I mentioned earlier as well about using, calibrating for both eyes, left eye or right eye. That's a simple change, as you can see here. We've got both, we've got left, and we've got right in the center. So I can simply select one of those if I wanted to. And you'll see here now, one eye is grayed out and one eye is white. So that's my left eye. Or if it's my right eye, again, the left eye is grayed out and I'm using just my right eye. Okay, or back to both, and we have 2 white dots again. Okay, so that is the dots, that's your eyes, and that's how you track either both left or right eye. So moving on now to customization that I want to show you. So to customize, all we have to do is down at the bottom, you'll see calibration, customize, and calibrate. We've already looked at calibration. So now what I want to look at is customize. So if I look at customize, this opens up the customization of the actual software. So here is where I can look at 1 point and basically just do a calibration at 1 point, 2 points, 5 points, or 9 points. Okay, so basically the reason you have different points is the more points you have, the more accurate your calibration is. So if you had someone, for example, using a 7x7 grid size on TD Snap, that would require a higher accuracy because the buttons are smaller and we need to focus in on smaller areas basically. But if you had someone who's using cause and effect software, maybe like, Sensory FX2, for example, you could work on maybe a 1, a 2, or even a 5-point calibration if the eye gaze user is able for 5-point calibration. So we can work on that, and basically that requires less accuracy. So as we look around the screen, it's going to pull our eye gaze towards whatever it is anyway at a lower accuracy itself. Okay, so again, I'm just going to do a calibration on a lower calibration point setting. So on 2, we look at close. And then what I'll do is I'll look at calibrate. And now it's only going to calibrate the 2 points. Okay. So here we have it. It's going to go to the 1 point up here and the 2nd point down the bottom right. Okay. So here are my 2 great points, and then I press close, and that's my calibration for my 2 points basically done. Okay. So that is just how we would do that with the customization. So the next thing to show you then is the step through, okay? And step through, we can have that on or off, and we can use, if we have a keyboard, the S key, or we can double tap on the screen as well if we like to as well. And step 2 basically doesn't allow us to move on to the next point if we're doing a calibration until we, as a communication partner, either press the S on the keyboard or double tap on the screen to go to the next point. And that will allow the eye gaze user to focus much more slowly on a specific point, and we'll keep staring at that. And then when we're ready, we'll move on to the next one. So it's slowing down that calibration then as well. Okay. The calibration sound, you can have that on or off if you like. So basically, as we go through the calibration, it'll ding as we basically do each calibration point, and it moves on then after that sound. The background here then as well, as I mentioned, I can go into background. Sorry, my hand is in the way. Click on the background and I can change the color of the background. So whether I want to have the black background that we see or a pink background there as well to brighten up the colors, we can do that as well. Okay, so change that. We can change this, the stimulus as well. So at the moment we have that white circle with the black dot in the center. So I can go into browse. And when I go into browse, there is certain ones available here already. There's a blue circle, there's a brown circle, brown smiley, there's a cat image, there's a cow image, there's a donkey image, a pig. So there is a few different ones, and there's interactive ones as well. For example, shapes video. So we can put a video in as well if we want. So you can, from the internet, you can download an image. Say, for example, it could be Mickey Mouse, Peppa Pig. Grab that photo, put that in this, download it onto your computer, browse, and you just search for it on your computer, and you use that image. Okay, then what I'm going to do then is I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go back into Calibrate just to show you here now again. And now we're using a more interactive video. So we might get someone's attention more when we're doing a calibration with the video like this. Okay, and then we have our calibration done. So looking at close again and back to customize. Okay, so that is how we do the video. The last thing then to show you is the stimulus speed. So again, that's the speed of the stimulus going across the screen, whether we want that slow, whether we want that medium, or whether we want that fast. Again, how fast it goes across the screen. And again, the stimulus size. So we can have small, which it's on large already. We can have small, medium, or large. So again, I can go to small and I have it on fast. And again, I'll show you the calibration this time. Let's actually go back to customize and let's go for 5 points. So all the while you're seeing I'm doing this with my eye gaze, but I can also do this by touch as well. So if I was the communication partner, I could do it by touch or eye gaze. Okay, so just look at close there again for a second and customize. Okay, so that is just how we change those settings then on the eye gaze device itself.